committee meeting. If I could get a roll call, please.
Chairwoman Sims,
Present.
Alderman Leahy,
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Here.
and Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
All present.
Great. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval or amendment of the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move. Second.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. That'll be, I can do that by acclamation, right?
Sure.
Sounds good. Moving right along. Item number 3 on the agenda, announcements, appointments, or proclamations or recognitions. There are none. Item number 4 is citizen comments. I'm not aware, but I'm also not sure how we're handling that. Is anyone, any member of the citizen here to make a comment, or did we receive any kind of comment?
I did not.
Okay. So we will move that along. Item number 5 is report of the committee chair and alderman. I have no report. Alderman Leahy,
No report.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
No report.
Alderwoman Parker Tice.
No report.
Okay, moving along. Item number 6 is the city administrator report. Bola, if you could lead us off on that.
So under city administrator report, we've included the income statement for the months of January and February, and I thought that Karen Schaaf could present that, and if you have questions, you may ask as well.
That would be great. Karen?
Okay. So since this is just old news almost at this point, and we're probably more concerned about what March is going to look like in April and May going in, or going out the rest of the way. And let me preface all this as it says preliminary because we're still working with Bot's deal to do end of the year adjustments. So for example, sales tax, you see that it says on the first page, the 4th line down, 75%. And we would like it to, you know, and it looks less than it was in this time last year.
Karen,
but keep in mind.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Thanks. On page, just for to make the records, you're on page 1 of the income statement, and then you're at sales tax. Is that right?
Yes, and it's line 4 or revenue line 4. So what this distinction I was making is between column 1 and column 2. Column 1, we will still be doing adjusting entries. For example, that sales tax number on the number line 4, we're going to be doing a reversal of last year's or 18th accrual and putting in what we've received January and February of of 2020. So that still needs to be done. So basically that's why I'm telling you those are preliminary numbers, but for the most part, they're somewhat comparable. But I just wanted you to know that it's at 75%. It looks lower. It probably will be. I don't know that for a fact, but that's how we need to approach all of these right now as far as revenues, because in comparing them to last year, because we are still doing adjusting entries for this for 2018. If you flip over to page 2 and start looking at the expenses for the general fund, which is more controlled by department heads, they should be at, we're 2 months into the year is 2/12 of the year, so we should be around 80% or so. And everybody is under budget at this point, everybody, except for on page 3, if you look at sort of about halfway through to municipal operating expenses. Let me explain that those are all things that you can't assign to a department. It means it's citywide. For example, things like utilities and insurance and maybe working on City Hall, miscellaneous contractual expenses, that type of thing. So if you look, the main one that two things that look like it's bringing it down are the employee benefits.
Yep.
And the, hold on, one more, the
Insurance.
insurance.
Is the
And that's because we've made a payment, and that's every 6 months. So we've done one. The employee benefit, that's one that we run through what the retirees pay. So we have to book it back in there. So that's just why it looks like that's a false figure basically, because it's the beginning of the year. We have to fund the benefit of the FSA, which is the flex spending plan. So it gets done up front in the year. So that's why that number's lower. If you flip all the way over to page 6, towards the top,
Yep.
that 84% is right on target for all of the general fund expenditures. So everybody's staying within their budget in the first 2 months of the year. From there, we can flip over to Fund 40, which is capital improvement, and it is on page 10. And if you look at the very first revenue line, 82%, again, there's going to be some adjustments, but that's on target for what we were expecting. As for expenses, we somewhat, as of the last week or two, have kind of put a halt on major spending out of this fund. So you're going to see that we're probably not, at least in the next several months, going to be spending a lot of the capital out of the capital fund. With that said, there were capital items that have already been ordered or purchased that aren't on here because it happened in March. So there will be some expenditures you'll see, but after that, we've somewhat put on hold unless it's something we absolutely have to have. On page 12 is the new Economic Development Sales Tax Fund. I will just tell you that, well, you see $7,100 as of February, but we got $188,000, I think, in March for just this tax itself. And I just wanted to mention that the debt service that's due on this, because this is the 2019 COP where the debt service payment, the first interest payment that would be due April 1st, we capitalized it, meaning it's in the bank already. So we won't have to make that payment, we don't have to come up with that cash. And this was done purposely because we know we had to build up this fund to be able to pay this debt service. And then in October, we will have the final payment of principal and interest, and that will be a little over 1.2 million in October. After that, Parks and Rec and is on the next page, page 13. I wanted to speak to those revenues. I don't think Eric's on here, but a lot of this revenue that is booked in here as of February, my staff is refunding it right now. And when I say a lot, I don't have the exact number. Eric,
It's about 65,000 plus.
I think it might be even closer to 70,000. I can tell you this, that it is receipts that equal in paper, if you want to think of it in paper size, over a ream of paper that we have to refund people. That's their receipts. So what does that mean to what you're looking at on page 13? That's going to reduce those numbers because we have to back it out when we refund them. So that's Parks and Rec. And again, to me, we're on target. Eric's pretty good about keeping up with his budget. And if you look on page 15, Brentwood bound, that's as of February, the 203,461. On this particular report, it's just that one line item. but we do have it broken out, not in anything I've given you tonight, but we do have it as a report where it's broken out by, I call them projects, but it's broken out by the 4 categories of soft cost, property, acquisition, construction, and contingency. But for a grand total, that's what you're looking at as of February. Lastly is the sewer improvement, and again, you'll see in the revenue, there's no transfer in from general fund, so we're trying to just live on its own. And so far, as we would expect, the revenue is not nowhere near expenditures. We got 38,000, and this time last year we had 40. But that 148,000, Dan last year did some really, really good calculations, and we were pretty spot on last year in getting that amount of money. In addition to that, the 3,500 that the board approved, it really has helped the fund. And then the fact that some people are, when they are asking for this to be fixed, they're getting, and they're more they have more responsibility for the cost. They're getting their own estimate. Well, that in turn helps the city because they're going to go with the lowest estimate. And why I say that is I've seen a lot of these come through for me to have to approve, and they've been less than the 3,500 that the cities had to pay. The last bit of this report, as you see, are a bunch of funds called 90s. You never saw those before because those were manual entries that we did. We got them put on the books as of January 1st, actually 2019. So you're going to see more once we get the books closed. In fact, this may be it because I think I've already entered all those based on what Spot Steel gave us. But this is, I don't know how to describe it other than these are called debt service funds, and there's a fund for each debt that's related. So as you see, it's Series 2017. COPs is on page 19. And I specifically broken out this specific so that it's easier to track. And then the very last fund is Fund 98, which is towards the back. That's the Series 2019 COPs. So even though we're going to show debt service payment coming out of the stormwater, Parks and Stormwater Fund, the auditors make an entry and they take it out of there and run it through this Fund 90. That's all I had for the income statement as of February, but if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
I think you just answered every question I had. That was really.
Oh, good. Good.
I was
Good.
concerned about the percentages as of February, knowing income will be down. And given your comments, we can foresee that. And I think you've prepped really well, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you. Bo, do we want to talk about anything here
Seems
out?
like
what we're
Alderman
discussing?
Leahy
Alderman Leahy's got a question.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. Go ahead.
Karen, I'm on page 11. The Series
hang on, let me flip over.
2017 reference cups, there's a $70,000 payment showing a $55,000 shortage.
Okay, I'm sorry. What page? You're on page 11?
Page 11,
Oh, yeah.
you've got a Series 2017 reference cops where we made a $70,000 payment, but we have a $55,000 shortfall.
And you know what? I did not see that like you do. I see that 373,000. I'm willing to bet you that that's been miscoded because we haven't made any debt service payments yet. We don't make them till April. And that's probably someone keyed in something wrong somewhere as far as, and if my computer will pop up, I might be able to find it quickly, but I can look into that and get back with you. I can try to look it up right now if my computer will not
At your leisure.
shut down.
At your
Okay,
leisure, we
but
can do
that's-
this later.
Yeah, we have not made any debt service payment. We won't make any till April 1st.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Alderwoman Parker Tice.
So I have like a big picture question because clearly the world has changed. And I know Bull is doing everything possible to cut expenses. Is there a point like June that we would relook at the budget? Do we just do a budget amendment at the end of the year? At what point is it necessary for this committee to look at that?
We're working on that right now. Karen's doing revenue forecasting, working with specific departments who are responsible for different revenue types that come into the city, whether it's fees, program fees, whether it's business license, whether it's fines, and occupancy permits, construction permits, different things like that. So we want to have a little bit more time to do further analysis and make sure that what we're forecasting and what we're hearing from the business community is accurate, so that when we present potential revenue loss over X period of months, that we have better information for the board to consider, what are some of the options that the city could consider to kind of stopgap measures. So we're looking at a number of proposals that we will be bringing forward, but we're not quite there yet.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions with regard to Karen's presentation or the income statement? All right, seeing none, we'll move along.
Great.
Or did I miss a hand? No, we're good. Okay, I'll move along on the agenda. Where'd we go? Item number 7, the department report. I see no report. Item number 8 is the consent agenda. I see no items on that portion. Item number 9, old business. 9A is the St. Louis Area Insurance Trust Services description of services and 5-year analysis of performance. Who will lead us off on that? Bola?
So you had asked that I make a request for Steve Wicker with Daniel and Henry to be in attendance tonight, and he is not available, but he's happy to come at a later meeting date to talk about the request that was extended to him back in January following the meeting that the mayor and I had with them to go out and obtain quotes for excess insurance coverage. We gave him a number of requests, I believe 3 million, 3.5, 4 million, upwards in that range, to let the city know what the premium would be for those excess insurance coverage. I have been told that we won't have that until May. So I think we could schedule him to attend in May, and we'll know what those premium costs are. And it's a good time because we could either pay for it now, depending on what the direction of the board is, or we can factor that into the 2021 budget. Also, I had provided an update when last this committee met that we had better clarification from this meeting with the mayor that in order for the city to retain membership as part of SLATE, we would need to keep our liability coverage, our health insurance coverage as well. And I believe that the mayor had expressed an opinion that health insurance is, and I agree, one of the key benefits that helps us attract folks to come work for municipal government. Because when you do in comparison to what people can earn in the private sector, there's really no comparison. And prior to us joining SLATE in the healthcare group, we were seeing increases, premium increases in the double-digit numbers. So since we've been with SLATE, and this goes as far back as 2009, we've seen increases more within the range of 2 to 4%. And the reason why is we have member lives totaling about 4,500 people. So that helps us to manage that cost. So if there's a desire for the city of Brentwood to go out and obtain its own liability coverage, we would have to divest ourselves of membership in SLATE.
And so I can have it understood in my mind. So that was my understanding, that we weren't able to extract liability from SLATE, and so we were going to stay because we can bundle these insurance, these different insurances with Slate. And then we were going to explore our coverage and whether or not to bid out, or basically a general analysis of what our excess coverage is currently and what we should do in the future. What is our current excess liability coverage if Slate were to go, if that trust were to be maxed out?
So I believe there's coverage of $3 million in, I wouldn't call it excess liability, but if there were to be a claim against the trust. So there's 3 million, and we have a fund balance, we have a reserve, and part of that reserve is from us performing well under health insurance, premiums and things like that. So we are going to be discussing at a meeting later on this month the Slate board consideration for additional excess insurance, and possibly a special assessment just to beef up our fund balance for the members. So in my conversation with the mayor, because there have been quite a number of judgments against member cities, it has depleted the fund balance over time, but there's still substantial amount in there. But the board is also looking at other ways to shore that up.
Alderwoman Parker Tice.
So on that line of the fund balance, it really seems like, as you said, Bola, it really seems like the health insurance is shoring up the entire fund balance. I read the Slate the financial examination of Slate by the state of Missouri through 2018, and the workers' comp and liability fund balance is negative 7.8 million, and the health insurance is positive 11.6 million. So the total fund balance is 3.7, but it's really shorn up by the health insurance, which is particularly troubling to look at when, a few years back, the total fund balance was close to 16 million in 2015. And then at the end of 2018, it's down to, 3.7. Is that, as a board member of Slate, has that been a concern of the board? Have you all been talking about this, and how is Slate looking at dealing with this?
We have been talking about it, and if you look at that, as you said, we've had a lot of high dollar workers' compensation claims. So we have been encouraging all our members to develop safety programs and safety committees, so that, there are key departments where we tend to see a lot of injuries. Some, in order to avoid it, we have put in place a no pursuit policy for our police department, because we have had some tremendous, almost life-ending accidents that have occurred. And we have made it a condition of membership that each member city at the end of the year would provide a pursuit report that shows that they're in compliance with that policy. So that's one thing we've done. The other I mentioned is putting safety committees in place and training, having regular meetings and training for our employees, so that they make common sense judgment when performing their job, maybe lifting things that you couldn't humanly lift, and all of a sudden you have a torn rotator cuff, or your back is out, or things like that. So we've been considering that over time, as long as I've been, well, even long before I was elected to the board. So yes, we are definitely concerned with that. And in recent years, we're seeing a change in that our workers' compensation claims are lowering. However, because of the nature of some of these accidents or incidents, it takes a longer period of time to rehabilitate folks, and we always have to keep actuarially a pool of money so that we can rehab that person, or get them to a point where they can resume their healthy lives. So yeah, it's something we continue to discuss. There's another Slate board meeting coming up this month, April 16th, where we're going to be taking up all these topics again.
I have more questions, but I can wait, or however you want to do it, Sunny.
Well, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so take it away, Nancy.
So, sort of back to the being on the slate board, I know Daniel and Henry has been the broker for slate for years and years. Has there ever been an RFP put out to look at that from the board, to look at their management of it?
We issued, I want to say maybe last year, year before, an RFP to have an audit done of all the services that Slate provides. And there has been a recommendation on, maybe breaking out some of the services that we offer. So a committee has been put together for us to explore that a little further. So we're in the beginning stages of that. And that was at a meeting we had in January. I can't say what the decision of the board will be on that. But we're reviewing the report that was generated from that RFP.
Is it public were there concerning things that came out of the audit, or were there?
When you do an audit, there's always suggestions for improvement. I'm trying to see if I can lay my hand on that report. I had it minutes ago. It is a public document, I believe, so I can make that available. I can make that available to the committee. To the committee. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to guess as to what it says, but we're looking at different aspects of that.
So there's been some concern addressed in the public sphere about whether Slate covers class action suits. Is that something you can address, or is that something we need to wait for Steve Wicker to address?
I think Steve Wicker, in the response to the committee, indicated that the individual that raised that concern was clearly mistaken in his assumption. So, and I'll read Steve's comment to you. He says, the resident is simply incorrect. The case referred to was not defended by Slate, but by the city of Ferguson's public officials carrier at the time, Allied World. Brentwood had the same coverage at the same time of this suit. Thus, there is no impact to Slate. This case involves state court claims against the city for collecting warrant fees that are not allowed by the Missouri statute. I think that the resident rightfully should be looking at that, but I also want to point out to you that there's potential conflict for the individual that's raising the concern, because that individual is also in this line of work. And I've been talking to this individual as far back as 2017, who is looking for an opportunity to bid on all these liability coverage in Slate. So you all should be aware of that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that much I put together.
That's clear.
I mean, if it's not liability, it's workers' comp. If it's not workers' comp, it's public officials coverage. And this individual indicated that there were no public officials coverage for members of the board. Highly inaccurate. It clearly states it in the bylaws that will be obtained for all members of the board. So it's almost like every couple of months trying to defend why there's value in the city being part of Slate.
So I will say that I heard a lot from a resident, and I also went back and spent a lot of time reading original documents. I read the Slate report. It's going weird on my green screen, but the Slate report from the state. I did my own simple Google search to look at old articles about Slate. So I am new to this and know that there's a lot. I've reached out to people who used to be on the board of Slate to kind of try to learn more about this situation. So I definitely appreciate what you just said, but feel like there's still enough questions that we need to do our job asking. And you know, I agree. Slate, there's something valuable to Slate. Right now, it's some North County municipalities, they're having issues. It could be, it could easily be us another year. And so merging with other municipalities for this kind of insurance makes, you know, the principle of that makes sense.
And I think if the committee could be patient and allow Steve to come in and join us, there might be some questions you're thinking about now that he could easily answer for you that I'm unable to right at this
Perfect.
moment.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I would enjoy having the opportunity to ask him some questions.
And Paula, you think that that'll happen at the May meeting? He'll
Yeah,
be
because
kinda-
that's, well, you know, our main meeting is scheduled for, I'm looking at my calendars, you know, usually first of the month. So that would be, well, is it May 7th? So that gives us at least a week from May 1st, and I'm hopeful. I'll follow up with them again, because I think I heard that we shouldn't expect the excess coverage premium quotes until May 1st. So that gives us a good time to be able to schedule this for May 7th and ask him back to come and talk about that.
You know, maybe at the April meeting, we could get a general update as to scheduling, because I think this is important enough that if we're not gonna have all of the pertinent information by May 7th, I believe that perhaps the committee would push it to May 14th, so we could, you know.
Good. I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Could
No
I
doubt.
add, could I add one thing, that if you're going to ask Steve about things like their assessment of risk, their capitalization, their excess coverage, and a lot of that information will be proprietary, and it may not be appropriate for a public discussion. That doesn't mean you can't get into it, but a lot of the sort of fiscal integrity questions that you may have, he can be a lot more candid, and I think can probably help you a great deal more if you conduct that discussion in a closed meeting.
Is that, I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever gone into a closed committee meeting. Can we do that?
Yeah.
All right, well then, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I want to make sure the committee has their questions, you know, answered. And if that's what we need to do, then I think that's what we should do.
Well, when you talk about what is our assessment of the risk, I mean, that he may say the XYZ case is a danger for us. Well, whoa, nobody wants that in public. And you know, the insurance carrier's assessment of it. And there may be a variety of reasons why that information is proprietary. Now, you as partial owners or members are you know, the city's entitled to a lot of that information, but it still may be confidential with respect to that entity, and therefore comes within exceptions to the Sunshine Law, so you can have a more candid discussion. Just an observation.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I'd like to have our advance work set this up for as much of a win as possible. So if it's appropriate that we go into a closed session at that time in May, let's let that out. You know, so we're able to, you know, ask all the questions and have a candid responses as we need.
Yes, especially when we already know there are competitors seeking to find out as much as they can, perhaps.
Are there, so we'll look to May to be the Grand Inquisition. Were there other questions on this agenda item? And my computer just went to sleep, so hold on a second.
So while you're doing that, I just want to, I don't think I answered this question correctly or properly or expanded on it as much as I needed to. Slate does have excess insurance coverage as well. The figure of 2 million sticks in my mind right now, but we can get further clarification from Steve and May.
Okay, that'll be great. Are there, I'm awake now on my desktop. Are there any other questions as to this agenda topic? All right, I'm not seeing any hands, so we will move along.
Chairman,
Who is that?
this is Karen.
Oh,
It's
Karen?
Karen. Yeah.
Yes.
Before you adjourn, I just wanted to address Alderman Leahy's question, but if it's now's not the time, let me know and I'll wait till the end.
You're close to the motion for adjournment.
Yeah, Karen, I would go ahead.
Okay.
If you're ready to respond, that'd be great.
Okay. Okay, great. So I was able to get back on my computer. You were correct, Mr. Leahy. That 70,893.89, 15,000 of that is a debt service payment. The bank sent it to us really early. I don't know why, but it was due yesterday. And the balance of that would go into line, and I'm on page 11.
Mm-hmm.
The balance of that would interest and fiscal charges of 6,556.
6, the
And
bottom
that's
line.
yeah, and I'll have to talk to him about it. But
Okay.
thank you for pointing that out.
It just looked odd to me when I was reading through the report and going, I
Yeah.
don't understand it. So
Yep.
I asked a question.
Yep.
I'm not brains.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to
That's
adjourn.
all I.
Well, we're not, there was no new business, item number 10. And then I see that there are no additional citizen comments. That's item 11. So yes, item 12, Alderman Leahy, take it away. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the Ways and Means meeting.
Second.
Second the motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you.
I thank, everybody who put the technology
Shelley.
together.
Thank you,
I
Shelley.
thought that worked well. Thank you, Shelley.
Works really well. Thank you, Shelley.
Yeah.
Good to
Thank
see you all. Take care, everybody.
All right, see you at the next one.
Leaving meeting.
Thanks, Paul.
Do you want to leave?